Wait, I've hit a weight loss plateau. What do I do? Listen, it's happened to all of us. You're right there cruising along, you're losing the weight, not fast, but steady. And then all of a sudden, you're not. And it's not just that, but you're just not seeing or feeling results at all. We're unpacking all of the whys and why that would be true for a woman who's in perimenopause or postmenopause and what you can do about it. And believe me, I've got the expert. The doctor is in the house. I'm Deborah Atkinson. You're listening to Flipping 50, where I address your top struggles and concerns. I share what to eat, how to move, and how to change your mindset so you can have the energy and vitality that you want, need, and deserve in this second and better half. And listen, if you need a little jump start to your exercise, or perhaps you need to do less exercise because it's becoming too much for you, perhaps that might help your weight loss plateau. I'm going to put the 5-day flip in the show notes. It's 5 very short videos. I will send to you one a day, and you have time for these. They're 15 minutes long or less, with a little audio explaining what's the attachment, the connection between the exercise and the hormones that I may be positively improving today. Again, link in the show notes to that. But right now, let's talk about why you might be having a weight loss plateau. Dr. Anna Kabeka, thank you for coming back. I can't wait to dive into this topic.
It's a good one.
Well, it's a good one, but it's a struggle. And here's what happens if I'm asking you, it's because I hit a point where not only are my clients saying, I've hit a weight loss plateau, what do I do? But as a coach or a trainer, if you're listening, and I know you are, you often also hit, I can't figure it out. Why isn't it working for her? So we're here hopefully to shed some light. I mean, what else? If we've looked at all the obvious, then maybe we're not exercising enough. We're eating too much or too much processed foods, wrong foods, maybe not sleeping. Midwomen of all kinds will ask, what can cause this weight loss plateau and what do I do about it?
Yeah. And it's such a good question. I would say pretty much everyone I've worked with and myself, right, have experienced these plateaus. And it's almost like when you're doing everything that worked and everything that works stops working. What's going on with that, right? So there's that piece too. And I really dug into it because it's been a journey through, as a physician, certainly with helping my patients, but my own journey from early menopause to reversing it to experiencing a second bout of, oh my gosh, 20 pounds of weight gain without doing anything different. So I experienced that myself. And I'd been well over 240 pounds at one point. And when you start gaining weight after you've lost it, and there's no reason that you can see, oh my God, well, I'd be 300 pounds before this stops. And it's just definitely that was there, and it drives you into panic mode. And that took me to identify like my Keto-Green plan. And so I'll talk about that for a second, because when I was going through that spiraling down, weight spiraling up, all of that at the same time, mood swings, hot flashes, irritable, anxious, difficulty sleeping, all of that spiral with hormones. And I had my hormones dialed in. I'm a hormone doctor. So it came from knowing that it takes more than hormones to fix our hormones. So I created this, as I figured out, right, test and experimented what works best for me, getting into ketosis to cut out all sugar and get into ketosis, into that fat burning mode, and to get alkaline at that same time, an alkaline urine pH, which is by adding certainly vegetables, especially the low carbohydrate greens and dark leafy vegetables, as well as cruciferous vegetables for hormone balancing, as well as more alkalizing herbs and spices, because when we go into fat burning, we need to push out toxins, and if we're eating more meats and fats, that's very acidic. So we need alkalinizers on hand to balance that. Otherwise, we're getting an increase in uric acid, which affects our metabolism and increases obesity. And it's a spiral, especially for women. So those alkalinizers were key. So that was the development of my Keto-Green plan. And within weeks, I lost 18 of those 20 pounds within 6 weeks. And that was
Wow.
a huge eye-opening experience for me. The combination made all the difference. And so that's where I created my first book, my first program, Magic Menopause, and then my book, Keto-Green, the Hormone Fix, and really went into that. And so from that was average fasting, 13 hours. This is back in 2015. So much good information. But then clients were like, okay, we want something shorter, faster. And what's the next? What else did I need? What else did my clients, thousands of women need? And so that birthed Keto-Green 16, my 16-day plan, with also a vegetarian 16-day plan and the omnivore 16-day plan. And with that 16 hours intermittent fasting and a extended 3-day fast as part of that too, a 3-day Keto-Green. So with shakes and alkalinizers, smoothies and bone broth to really top off those 16 days. And so now people have been going through that for a year and a half and hitting, different places, hitting plateaus, and including, you get, I always say, restriction fatigue. You do one thing for a while, it works. And then you're like, oh, well, we can try these different things. But even in this realm, it's like, okay, well, what do I need now? And sometimes it's about increasing and working with thousands of patients and clients doing this. Sometimes it's increasing carbohydrates, right? To increase that carb up
Mm-hmm.
and the metabolic flexibility. And sometimes it's just needing to do a cleanse to get really, rebooted. And sometimes it's about restricting carbs even more, doing more of a carnivore plan for a while because of food sensitivities, and we want to clean that up. And another is sometimes doing plant-based, and another is just being really clear on clear on avoiding all inflammatory foods as part of the Keto-Green plan. So that birthed Menopause, which my new book is coming out April 12th, and it's called Menopause, and it's 5 6-day plans that each cover a different pause in a certain dietary style. And that's, again, because that's where we have to fine tune and reboot, or, just change things up in as healthy a way as possible.
So I'm loving this, by the way. So, but I'm also seeing, all right, a listener might be saying, well, then there is no right answer. So I just rotate what I do. But let's talk about these 5 plans. So is there a criteria? Like, I'm looking at these 5 options. Am I going to spin the dial, or is there, based on X, Y, and Z, here's what might be the best recommendation for you?
Yeah. And I created a quiz. It's called the Menopause quiz. You're so intuitive, Deborah, because I know you don't know my lead, what I have created for Menopause at the time of this recording. But I created a quiz called the Menopause quiz, and it actually does ask you questions. Let's start here. I think it's great to rotate through all of the plans eventually, but where are you going to move the needle the fastest based on what you're experiencing? So if you've got a
Yes.
lot of, yeah.
Asks every woman everywhere, right? Yes. Where am I going to move the needle fastest? I love it. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And that's it for me too. And it's like, okay, well, what's going to make the biggest change? And then where do I find my balance? How do I discover, without going into complete food restriction mode, how do I discover what suits me best at this time? But I think you're absolutely right. Like, we have to change things up, like our exercise routine. We don't work the same muscles every day. Why should our diet be the same?
Yeah. That is such a great, and yet here I am taking notes. I'm like, I have to ask her this. So literally, you're interrupting me taking notes. But here's what I was writing. So, having worked with women, in a coaching or one-on-one situation before there was health coaching it was that, right? We just didn't know it. I've heard women say everything across the board. Some say I could eat the same thing every day. But I've also heard some say, I'm bored, and they're only like a week and a half in, and they're making a different kind of smoothie maybe every morning, but they're still tired of that.
Mhm.
So we are all so very different,
Mhm.
I think, in terms of, do we want the variety and seek it out, or do we like get into a rut really easily? But if I hear you correctly, we all do need to change it up.
We do. And I say, I look to nature, right? No, can't beat Mother Nature. So we really try to, as a biohacker, and really trying to figure out, I'm always like looking at what's the smallest change I can make to make the biggest difference. But, in Mother Nature, there are seasons. There are seasons for a reason. And we were evolved for the last, 100,000 years to eat seasonally based on where in the world we lived. There's always a season for different fruits, a season for different vegetables. We need to honor that cycle. We need to respect that cycle, and we need to eat as fresh during that seasons as possible too. So bravo to all the gardeners out there. You've got your own, like all of us can have a little herb, counter herb, a pot in our kitchen, something like that. But, we really want to work on getting as fresh as possible whenever we can. But that's where herbs are so beautiful too, Deborah. I mean, just adding that in. I say that yes, we all have to change it. And so easy not to. And it's so easy to, especially now, have a freezer stocked of frozen foods that can all be healthy frozen foods. And then when are you changing, or your favorite smoothie every day? Like, when are you changing? When are you changing that up? And so now
Mhm.
it's like winter, and I'm putting more nuts in my smoothie than low glycemic berries. And I'm just kind of conscientious of, I'll change it up, but I want to prioritize the seasonal varieties that we have that are available. And I just have to say, while I don't exactly know for sure, I have to trust our design and Mother Nature to the best of our ability. If it's not every day changing something up, but I would say seasonally, what can you add or subtract this season to give your body a little more variety if you are in that rut? And technically, if we eat the same foods every day, over 3 to 4 days in a row, our body can start to create a food sensitivity for that. So eggs every day, chicken every day. You have to change things up, or your body will start to have a food sensitivity to it. So I took all of that into consideration in creating the plans to make them easy, because I'm a busy mom, right? 6 days, because I want the best results in the shortest amount of time. And I want to create that variety. How do you feel at the end of this compared to how you started at the beginning of this? And that's what we have to do. We have to honor our design.
I love everything that you just said.
And I want to say,
Although
sorry, you're chicken salad eaters every day.
exactly. And I think that pushing that point though is so very important, because I think too many women will say, well, I don't have a problem with eggs,
Mhm,
and yet by continuing to eat them every day, they may create the problem
mhm.
even if it's not prominent right now.
Well,
So get that.
and you don't necessarily know unless you take it out of your diet for a while. And
Hmm.
really, that's like a 21-day minimum mostly. Just if
Yeah.
you're like eating something that you typically eat every day, take it out of your diet for 21 days and then reintroduce it, and see what happens after 1, 2, 3 days. The headache, joints, knee pain, breakouts, bloating,
Yeah.
any of those
Yeah.
symptoms, that's really a trigger. And again, as I worked with patients, and I had a patient, like, nope, I have an iron stomach. I don't have any issues, nothing, but she had migraines on a cyclical basis. I said, well, let's just stop dairy and gluten for one cycle, and I'll see you right after. Let me see. And while I get these labs done, I want to check your thyroid, magnesium levels, blah, blah, blah. And so she came back in. She goes, wow, I did great. I didn't have any pain this cycle. And I've been doing great. And I said, okay, great. Let's see what happens after you reintroduce your dairy and gluten. And she called me back 3 days later. No way.
Mm.
Huge migraine. So it's a trigger when so it's really important to be our own best detective. I always say it's put your Nancy Drew hat on. Let's get your Nancy Drew on and let's figure it out for us. We are, an N of one. There's no one else made like us, have had our same experiences. It's the
I love
fiber of
it.
our lives.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So that bio individuality. And right now, I know that listeners are thinking, well, I want to know more and I want to know more about this book. So listeners, just stay with us. So I want to ask one more really big question, and we've got the link to the book and the program in the show notes. So just stick with me and I will give you the link to that. But I want to ask you this because I really think when you were talking about these things, there's 5, 6 day plans laid out in this book. And the one that I think most women are probably thinking, well, I would never do that, would be like carbohydrate modification. Like you need more carbohydrates.
Mm-hmm.
I just feel women's like the hair on the back of their neck went up.
Well,
So talk about that.
yeah. And I think it's really surprising, especially as you go through some of the other plans and when you go to the carbohydrate modification plan, think of it as of a reset. But I took that into careful consideration as I created the plan and I test every one of these plans because I don't want to gain weight when I'm doing so well. I don't want to gain weight by adding carbs back. And it's often the reset that takes you through breaking the plateau as you move on back to a design or a plan that is amazing for you. It's often a reset you need. And the foods and the recipes that I incorporated into this plan are delicious, and they will not you're not going to get high and low, crazy blood sugar swings and all of that because the fats, the carbs, the protein, everything is really well balanced in it. So I want to encourage the Carb Up plan is often sometimes putting, again, each one of these, but designed to put a reset on so that you can hit your goal or feel more energized and have more strength and have more stamina and be your best, sexiest, strongest, healthiest self.
Love it. And that's sign me up. I'll have what she's having. Yep.
Mwah.
Okay, one more quick question before we wrap this up. And I'm not sure if this is tucked somewhere into the programming, but I do know that this comes up as you were talking about carbohydrates. That's what spurred the question. You mentioned a little bit about, there are healthy fats with it, there's protein with it. There is a school of thought with some who really profess, there's protein and you can have protein and carbs or you can have protein and fat, but don't mix all three or don't mix both carbs and fat. Thoughts on that?
And it is very interesting, right? So look ancestrally. How does that look over
Mhm.
time? And I think it's really important thing to consider. And what types of carbs are we putting in our body, right? At the same time. So the issue is and the order of foods even, right? Eat your carbs at the end of the meal, not at the beginning of the meal, where that's going to drive up insulin into storage mode when you eat the carbs first. So taking that into consideration when you're adding carbs to fats, and you got to make sure that you have enough fiber and fats on board to slow the distribution of glucose systemically through your body at the same time. So with that bioindividuality and self-experimentation, it's worth doing a pause in that or a change for a week and see what results do you get from that? How does that feel? But by nature and by thousands of years of historical records, and one of the things that's really always fascinated me was originally the Turkey and the kings of the Ottoman Empire, so Turkish physicians. The Ottoman kings, their physician was their chef. They prepared their food. And so it often is about balance or variety and um, indulgence in many ways, but carefully, or it's restrictions, the bone broth that we have to do now to heal or to honor what we're going through physically or mentally at the time, or it's could be something else. So I look at this and I look at restriction over time for long reasons. And I'll tell you, one of the things that's come up most is like, okay, well, why? And especially when I first started learning about more of the like plant restricted diet, so more carnivore. And I do have a 6-day plan in here because many people have developed such food sensitivities that their body's not producing the digestive enzymes. They don't have the gut bacteria to adequately break down and use the food that they're ingesting. And that's just not natural. So what happened? Well, we have endocrine disruptors. We have chronic antibiotics. If we're eating anything that's not organic, we're getting a daily dose of an antibiotic. Farm chicken, farm fish, right? They've been given antibiotics. We're eating those. Chemicals and endocrine disruptors, hormones that are giving to animals, we're receiving those. And it's just traumatic, the damage it causes on our gut microbiome. So it takes some of these pauses and changes and varieties to increase the diversity of our gut, to heal our gut and increase the diversity of our gut microbiome. But it is about healing, restoring, rejuvenating. And it's a constant process. You don't just build a house and never have to maintain it. Same with our bodies. It requires a constant process. What is the next right step for you right now to improve the best results you can get? And just a final comment, Deborah, as I, as a physician and looking and helping, some of the best taken care of patients, right? Your CEOs of major companies that have had executive physicals, and I'm coming in and saying, look, you've had great treatment, but look at a pyramid. You can see a pyramid in your mind's eye, right? And tip it on its head, tip it upside down. So now it's on the tip of the pyramid, and you've got all this constellation at the top, this wide, flat surface, right? In modern medicine, what happened, and as I was thinking about a particular patient, is that we're treating all these symptoms. We're treating your diabetes, we're treating your cancer, we're treating your arthritis, we're treating your esophageal reflux, we're treating all these things at the top, right? But look, if I come down here to that tip of that pyramid that is now like, that tip and I make a change here, like where the problem originated, I'm going to affect all those symptoms and close that out, like eliminate those. And that's what I say, when we can make the smallest change that gives us the best results to heal our body naturally. And that's what we do in functional medicine and working in bioidentical hormones. That's what I've strive to do. What are we dealing with, and where, like if we're dealing with a cancer, what caused that? Was there an endocrine disruption? Was there a gut? Was there a course of antibiotics? Was there, a metal toxicity? What happened? And if I can fix that, all of these other symptoms disappear. Even with my program, my last book was Keto-Green 16, a 16-day plan. We have clients go through and they do their symptom questionnaire at the beginning, and at 16 days later, in 16 days, 80 to 90% improvement in all symptoms. And I can't get those results with a prescription for my patients. We have to be empowered to take our next right step and work with Mother Nature, not against it, as naturally as possible, and do the investigation work to get to that tip of that pyramid. And make the corrections, make the small changes, make the biggest differences while we're having fun with it. We're empowered in ourselves, have a positive attitude about us and those around us, and experience grace and gratitude, because all that wrapped together is so just transformative.
Love it. And you really wrapped it up there. I think at the very end, it's like, we get really narrowly focused, if we're on a weight loss plateau and we're really driven to that one thing, but forget that we need this to be a collective, holistic, feel good in all parts of our life, and it's going to take that in order to get ultimately what we want. Thank you for your eloquent words. And thank you for the book. I am so excited to share it with our audience.
It is my pleasure. Anytime, my dear friend. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
You're so welcome. And listeners, okay, it is now your turn. If there's a question you wish I would have asked, I know you're going to wish that you had the book in your hand. So I'm going to tell you how to do that, learn more about how to take that quiz and where you want to start. So first of all, I want you to click at the book link. That's flipping50.com/menu, like you're reading a restaurant menu pause. The show notes, just in case, because it'll be easier. The name of the podcast got you here. Show notes will be at flipping50.com/weight loss plateau. And what are you waiting for? Let's start flipping 50 today.